Thank you. So, yeah, thank you so much. There were so many great conversations that went into this and a lot of different kinds of resources that we'll make available after the event in different kinds of ways. So before I get into talking about the 5 tips for grant writing, I just wanted to say thank you to all of the people who came together to help in different kinds of ways make this happen. So thanks to Travis Wawrnak with the GSG, Mia Kempinen in the graduate school, and all of the library folks. So Angela Badke, Dora Schaefer, Jen Sams, Aaron Matus, and John Schneiderhan. So it's been really great to see all of the kinds of things that they've been putting together. So I just wanted to point out, so this is 5 tips for grant writing. We're going to move pretty quickly. And this is going to be based on some of my experience in a couple of different things. So one of the things that I am is a teacher of grant writing. We have a grant writing class that's a sort of junior level undergraduate class that's offered here at Michigan Tech. And part of the reason why I've been asked is because of that. I also write grants, as a lot of people do at this university. And I serve as a grant reviewer in an ad hoc capacity. So when there's a need for a kind of specialist reviewer for a different reason, then I'm sometimes asked to provide some comments on grant applications that have been completed. So I have 5 tips for grant writing for you, and this is in 3 categories. So first of all, 2 tips about responding to calls for proposals, then 2 tips about writing, and finally 1 tip about finding funding opportunities. So this is not necessarily the timing of this that you would expect. Of course, you would probably find the funding opportunities first and then respond to the call for proposals and in that write and grant application packet. But I think for different kinds of reasons, you'll see why I'm saving finding funding opportunities for the last of these tips. So first of all, tips for responding to calls for proposals. So my first tip is to make a checklist. So this is really helpful no matter the grant opportunity you're looking at and how you're deciding to respond to it. So what's a call for proposals asking for? It's a key piece of advice to read very carefully and to convert what you're reading into a checklist as much as possible. So a checklist that a lot of people at this university are familiar with is the National Science Foundation's full proposal checklist. The kinds of things that they ask for include a cover sheet, project summary, table of contents, project description with a lot of very specific formatting requirements there, references cited, biographical sketch, or probably multiple biographical sketches of the various people who would be involved, and a budget and budget justification. And this is really an abbreviated list. All of these different pieces have different kinds of subcategories associated with them, but this is a certain way of seeing this, how you could have a checklist associated with a proposal. And I should say, so I'm assuming that this is sort of mainly an audience of graduate students joining in person and via Zoom. And so for that audience, I do want to mention your advisors and mentors are a really great place to start. So they're probably very familiar with proposal formats like this one. They're very familiar with some of the process, some of what works in your particular field. And so asking them and having these kinds of conversations is really, really helpful in these kinds of cases. So my second tip. So first one, make a checklist. Tip 2, check off anything that's required. So if it's required in the call for proposals, then it makes sense for that to be in the grant application packet that is put together. Otherwise, the proposal can't be funded, even if it's otherwise excellent. So if anything is required, make sure that it's checked off, make sure that it's provided in some particular way. So here's another example. This is an example of a Ravitz Family Foundation grant. So foundations are a little bit different from government agencies in the sense that they tend to provide more grants in community development. But part of the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you can see there are some slightly different categories here than the ones that we saw before. You're seeing purpose, goals and objectives, project description and implementation plan, evaluation, and budget. So some overlap, but some differences there as well. Uh, One of the main reasons why I wanted to bring this up, though, is because probably a lot of you are coming here because you're interested in possibilities of research grants, but research grants are not the only kinds of grants. There are also a lot of grants that are possible that are for travel, for individuals, for different kinds of sort of personal development, a lot of grants available for different kinds of community development. So this is an example of one of those. Um, and just in general, grants are available for a whole host of things, even beyond research. So even if we have mainly a sort of research focus, I just wanted to have an opportunity to sort of point out some possibilities that exist beyond. So moving on then. So thinking about some of these tips for writing. So now we've been talking a bit about responding to calls for proposals. So for writing in particular. So my third tip today is show the doer. So passive voice is totally fine for a lot of different kinds of writing. It's really helpful, though, if it's really clear who is doing an action that is described in a grant proposal. So who's doing the actions that are described in your proposal, try to make it clear as much as possible. So here's an example that I made up from associated with the National Science Foundation's doctoral dissertation research improvement grants. So this is a good type of grant to know about. So it's one of these research grants, and it especially has to do with funding for final stages of data collection for dissertations in a variety of different kinds of fields. So I have an example there in parentheses. That's an example of what not to do, but what to do would be to make it clear sort of what would be doing the action. And in this particular case, it's actually sort of the grant or the proposal that would be doing the action that's described here. So the doctoral dissertation research improvement grant would cover costs associated with my collection of crucial data. That kind of sentence could be in one of these kinds of grants from a variety of different kinds of fields. And it makes pretty clear through that sort of active construction what it is that this particular type of proposal would offer. And that can be extremely helpful. This is also associated with tip 4, which is just in general to use plain language. So if you want some further resources about what plain language is, you can look at plainlanguage.gov and some other resources like that. But basically the idea here is that it's helpful to focus on interesting verbs instead of nouns and to explain specialized terminology as much as possible. And this is partially about the kinds of people who would be reviewers, but it's also partially about the kinds of language that would be expected in grant proposals in general. So here again is an example. This one is associated, this could be associated with various kinds of projects, but for instance, one of the ways that you could think about it could be through the National Science Foundation's Division of Graduate Education. And this is sort of pointing out that there are possibilities of educational grants that involve programming, including programming especially sort of geared towards graduate students like what we're doing now. So again, in parentheses is an example of what not to do, but what to do. So an example of something to especially pay attention to would be saying something like funded programming would help Michigan Technological University recruit and retain students from groups currently underrepresented in STEM. So there are a couple of things that I want to mention, especially about this sort of shift from the phrase in parentheses to the one that's written out. So one of those is that this is using interesting verbs rather than relying on some nouns to do a lot of the work of this particular sentence, and that can help with some of the clarity. Also, it's the shift is moving away from some sort of specialized terminology, in part because specialized terminology is generally fine, but sometimes specialized terminology can be a problem. Like in this particular case, the movement away from that sentence in parentheses is moving away from a term that could be offensive because it's not necessarily a term that groups of people choose for themselves. So
Yeah,
just to be especially clear,
yeah, I mean, it's
so
starting on
when
registry
specialized
when I
terminology is
start
used,
downloading
then
something or
it's
doing
really helpful to pay
some tasks.
attention to
Like,
how that
for
might
example, I use
refer
open
to groups of
Zoom
people
and it's
and
start
think about that. And then
doing
finally,
some noise.
so thinking
It
about
was something.
tips
I
for
mean,
funding
I
opportunities
am like
or
starting
finding funding
monitoring the task
opportunities.
manager.
So this is the last of
Because
the
when
tips.
once I
So
see something
again, we've
like
already gone
it was
through
something about
2 tips having to do with responding to calls for proposals, 2 tips having to
compatibilities
do with
here.
writing, and
One
then finally
of
this
the process for
last tip,
compatibilities that I started making
the
like
library
this
can help.
high
So this is
high
really
power
where
usage. Okay. So I
it
used
makes
to come
sense to
down
end
and this
here, and
start like
especially for those
reduce
of
the
you who are
noise.
here in
Yeah.
person,
But this happened like constantly.
something
So
that
I'm not
that
sure what
is
is going
really
on with the
helpful for you to
machine.
know is
Okay.
that so the library can help, and more specifically, so the library can help with these different kinds of searches. So if you're looking for grant opportunities, especially if you're interested in government agencies, grants.gov is a good place to go. Then moving around the circle. So Grant Forward is a particular service that is provided by Michigan Technological University. And this is a specialized search engine that can pull in some calls for proposals that might be associated with topics that you'd be especially interested in. So once again, like the people who work here in the library are very knowledgeable about that and can help with different kinds of tips. Also, they can help with advanced Googling. So thinking about how a, a simple Google search is not necessarily the best place to go when you're looking for funding opportunities, but if you're sort of modifying that Google search in different kinds of ways, then maybe you can find some good calls there. And also even more than that. So they're in the final stages of putting together a LibGuide, one of these sort of library guides of collected resources having to do with grant writing specifically, and we'll make that available once that's ready. So with that, thank you for listening, and we have plenty of time for questions. Thanks.
You want to ask a question in Zoom chat because
Oh, so yeah, so questions can come through Zoom chat also for those of you in the room, and questions can come from you as well.
so I had a question.
Oh,
so
good.
about tip 3 about doers.
Yeah.
I guess like what's the I guess like either reasoning or science behind that because I'm
Right.
I'm very like I'm not very surgical, I'm very blunt. And like when you show those 2 dings, I didn't really see a difference, but I'm just curious in your experience, like what is the
Yeah, so it's especially the case, right? So I'll go back to that example from tip 3. So yeah, I constructed this so that they would be very similar. So I wanted to make clear, first of all, so the question for those of you who maybe were not able to hear it was sort of, what are the differences between these two? So one of the things is sort of making clear what the proposal will allow, which both of them do, but the second one does through a slightly different sentence construction. Also, one of the things that is an interesting requirement of doctoral dissertation research improvement grants is that it's funding sort of the proposer's work as much as possible, so that that person and not necessarily sort of work that would be delegated to other people. So I feel like also in this rewriting, the word my is doing a lot of work, sort of indicating that it's conceived of as being sort of individual work, because that's something that this particular type of grant is really looking for. So yeah, I agree with you. Very similar, and that's part of the idea, but there are some sort of clues around it. And I think with any of these cases, like a single sentence is definitely not going to be enough to go on, but it's more about like the sentences that would be around it and how they would be expanded on. Thanks. Oh, yeah.
So do you think that use of active or passive voice changes based on the range of writing? Could affect just like listening grant?
Oh, gosh. I'm sure that it does. Just especially it's one of those things where this is another place where it would be excellent to like have conversations with your advisors or mentors about this, because I think in some fields it's much more usual to use passive voice than others. And so if you're in a field where it's really usual to use passive voice, I imagine that would then show up more in proposals. But again, I think sort of a general piece of advice, a general takeaway would be to think about the use of active voice, and at least in different kinds of ways, even in passive voice constructions, like making clear what would be doing the action. Okay. Any other questions? Anything that you're picking up from Zoom? Okay. Well, I think one thing I really wanted to mention then, and I would generally look to someone from the library, but one of the things that I should say is that there is this new library guide that's under development. It is actually published right now, so it's one of the lib guides, but on the general topic of grant writing. So it's going to be found under sort of / grant writing. So that's something that those of you who are looking for different kinds of resources that are collected can look to as well.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Thanks for presenting. Is there any more questions on either Zoom or in the room? All right, otherwise, yeah, thank you. We can give Andy a round of applause. Thanks.
Well, thank you all for coming.